Good evening. My name is Jack, and I will be presenting on idioms, their silliness, and their use in the book Pride and Prejudice, as well as the translation techniques used to translate the English Jane Austen version into a Spanish version. What is an idiom? There's this paragraph I would like to kind of go over for a second. The meaning of the whole is not simply the sum of the meanings of the parts. Kind of complicated phrase here, but I really like it and how it summarizes what an idiom is. In any sentence, we're giving parts, we're giving words. An idiom takes those parts and those words and what they typically would mean, it completely changes it. The sums do not add up anymore. It means something completely different. One plus one is no longer two. One plus one is whatever it wants to be. Examples. Tomar el pelo, to pull someone's leg. When we say to pull someone's leg, we're not literally saying, I'm going to pull your leg. It's a figure of speech, it's an idiom. It basically means I'm kidding with you, right? I'm pulling your leg. Idiom. Dale la vuelta a la tortilla, to turn the tide. Idiom. Acostarse con las gallinas, goes to bed early. Echar agua al mar, to put a drop in the bucket. Sometimes we may say, that was a piece of cake. An idiom is never taken literally. It's never literally meaning what it's saying. It's a figure of speech that has a completely different meaning, a different sum. It's not one plus one is two. It's one plus one is whatever it is, something new, something random. And what's important to keep in mind when translating idioms and thinking of idioms is the context in which they're used, as well as the culture in which they originate from. How does one go about translating idioms? It's complicated. It's complicated, so let's just get right into it. First off, um, here's some strategies. And these are examples given in a university in Iran of different ways we can translate an idiom. And these are just four techniques that are used. There's more, but there's a lot. I just had to include these four. One is to find an equivalent in both meaning and form. And two is to find an equivalent in both meaning, in just meaning, not form. In other words, for both of these, it's in the target language, you find a phrase that's similar, not exactly the same, but similar, either both in form and meaning or just in the same meaning, completely different form, but it means the same thing. That's the first two techniques. Technique three is to paraphrase or just say basically what it's trying to say, the idiom. In a way, it's kind of giving up. However, it's not actually giving up because actually giving up is called omission, and that is where you completely take out the idiom and just say, I'm not even going to try. I have no idea how to translate that into this new language. I'm just going to go past it and maybe say something else or just move on. Don't worry about it. Ana Maria Rodriguez, Penguin Clásicos 2017. She was the translator that translated Pride and Prejudice recently for the publishing company Penguin Clásicos. And that's the version that I have. And so I use that to kind of analyze the different techniques. Technique one was finding an equivalent both in meaning and in form. Here we have the phrase in English, Mr. Collins was gratified and with a more smiling solemnity replied. Smiling solemnity. Interesting use of words. Never really heard it myself, but that's kind of something Jane Austen wrote, and it would be difficult to translate that. Smiling solemnity. What exactly is that trying to say? Ana Maria Rodriguez says, Collins lo celebró y con risueña solemnidad respondió. Okay. Basically, that's exact. That's exactly word for word what it said, as well as what it meant. That is debatable. There's always going to be debatable, but it's basically word for word, both meaning and form is kept in this translation. Okay. Number two is finding an equivalent, same meaning, but the form is just completely different. Either the sentence is way different or they use different verbs, but it has the same meaning. Page 5. You delight in vexing me. What it says in Spanish, lo haces para importunarme. The sentences are structured differently, right? Lo haces, like different, they use different verbs. And also, it's not per se exactly word for word, like literal, you delight. in vexing me. It's lo haces para importunarme. It's not word for word as much as it is the same meaning. So the form is not exactly kept, but it conveys the same meaning. So another technique here. Technique three, paraphrasing, creating something new or just trying to explain what it's trying to say using different words. The contents of this letter threw Elizabeth into a flutter of spirits. Flutter of spirits, not really said often. It's a figure of speech, an idiom. A flutter of spirits, what could that mean? It was translated to el estado de agitación que le produjo la lectura. It doesn't really say at all flutter of spirits. Like that's not translated at all directly in and it's more just paraphrasing, just kind of putting completely different words into there to try to make the same idea-ish, but not really trying to save that idiom of flutter of spirits. She just kind of says, el estado de agitación. Finally, omission, which omission and paraphrasing I would say are very, very similar. You're not going to be missish. It's hard to say, I hope. Supongo que no irás a enfadarte. Completely different. In no way is it saying, don't be missish. It's saying a new thing. No irás a enfadarte. However, it's trying to do something with the original phrase. So again, it's debatable. It could be paraphrasing it, but also could be just omission. Just I don't know what, I'm not gonna try to get this phrase into the new language. I'm just gonna get the meaning across and move on, keep going. So those are four different techniques that were used in Jane Austen's novel. Something just to keep in mind, I like this little phrase. How can we put in the leg? Meter la pata. Basically, an important thing to remember is traduttore traditore. The translator is a traitor. This is something we read in one of our previous readings. And it's just important always to remember that the translator will always not get perfectly accurate and complete. The translation is always going to be different. You can never get it perfectly the same. That's just important to remember when translating idioms or translating in general. It's never going to be exactly the same, and we have to be okay with that. We're doing our best, but it's never going to be exact. Here are some sources that were used. Te voy a decir tus cuatro, seis verdades, which are just 6 examples of to help you with idioms and sources that are good for translating idioms. 2 questions. What is the purpose of an idiom? Why do we have idioms? What do they do? And what translation strategy do you believe to be most effective in translating idioms? Thank you. Have a wonderful night.